soldiers, sailors, and airmen of the Allied Expeditionary Force. You are about to embark upon the great crusade toward which we have striven these many months. The eyes of the world are upon you. The hopes and prayers of liberty-loving people everywhere march with you. In company with our brave allies and brothers in arms on other fronts, you will bring about the destruction of the German war machine, the elimination of Nazi tyranny over the oppressed peoples of Europe, and security for ourselves in a free world. Your task will not be an easy one. Your enemy is well-trained, well-equipped, and battle-hardened. He will fight savagely. But this is the year 1944. Much has happened since the Nazi triumphs of 1940-41. The United Nations have inflicted upon the Germans great defeats in open battle, man to man. Our air offensive has seriously reduced their strength in the air and their capacity to wage war on the ground. Our home fronts have given us an overwhelming superiority in weapons and munitions of war, and placed at our disposal great reserves of trained fighting men. The tide has turned. The free men of the world are marching together to victory. I have full confidence in your courage, devotion to duty, and skill in battle. We will accept nothing less than full victory. Good luck, and let us all beseech the blessing of Almighty God upon this great and noble undertaking.
All right, here we are. There's the immortal words of General Dwight D. Eisenhower on the eve of D-Day, addressing the soldiers, sailors, and airmen of the Expeditionary Allied Forces. So it is that time of year again, June 6th. Well, it's 2025, not 1944, but as customary, here we are. So joining us tonight is Chris.
Howdy, everyone.
Dawn.
Hey.
And Jim.
Evening, everybody.
And we're coming to you for D-Day and some other items. We're hoping our special guest will be joining us. And then we'll go from there. But in the meantime, let's do what we traditionally do and do some catch up. Chris, you want to start us off?
Sure. Been playing some games, working a bunch, and been working on some terrain for Trench Crusade.
Awesome.
Cool stuff.
How about you, Jim?
We talked about the Battle of Concord last episode or two. So those episodes are up on our YouTube channel. Check them out if you're interested. And after that, we've been getting ready for Bunker Hill. 250th anniversary of Bunker Hill is coming up in the next couple of weeks. So drawing some maps, assembling some units, putting things together for that game, and starting some playtesting. Hope to work on finish up that playtesting this weekend. Kicking around a little bit of Dark Star as well, but mostly historical. So mostly with Bunker Hill's coming up, 250th. After that, I promise to take a break from the American Revolution for a while. There's no real big battles for quite a while, really, like over a year after that. So, yeah.
Awesome. How about you, Dawn?
Well, let's see. Well, there's Lorcana, there's Magic. It's been all cards all the time for me for the last 2 weeks now. The latest set of Lorcana, which is the Reign of Jafar, dropped, and got a couple boxes of that. And then today, Jesse and I just picked up the newest Magic set, which was Final Fantasy, which I gotta say, I've never played the game before, any of them. So I literally, outside of knowing what the name of it was, I had next to no interest in the set, and I really wasn't going to get any cards. Then I watched a video, and they introduced a different card type in the set, and it's a saga creature. And I was like, I need those for Commander, especially because I know Jesse was going to get some. I got to keep up with the Joneses. And so we just cracked open our packs earlier, and they are very cool. Actually, I think it's the best set of cards we have opened in the last few sets that we've gotten. So pretty excited about that. Can't wait to start playing.
Awesome.
How about you?
My hobbying has consisted of
School,
cardiovascular drugs, respiratory drugs, health assessments. That's pretty much work and school. I'm in my final couple classes before I actually start my clinical rotations. So it's been doing that. I'm sitting here staring at the paint table, and there are several projects sitting over there that I really want to get finished. And because this is quote unquote D-Day weekend, there are 2 World War II projects sitting there that I probably will cover at least one of them live on Sunday. And that'll be either winners or the winter artillery piece that Jim sent us.
Oh yeah,
for
that's
bolt action.
75 pack howitzer.
Yep. So that's where we are with that. Other than that, I did start a new hobby. Well, not a new hobby. I started another hobby
because you needed more.
But it's related to wargaming. I'm gonna start doing
Chris, you will approve.
I'm gonna start doing some homebrewing again. So yeah, we're gonna do some homebrewing. So some beer.
There you go.
Yep.
Actual
Hold on.
homebrewing.
Yep. Somebody has joined us. Let me see if I can bring him in. This will be our special guest. This is Chris Bennett from Phalanx Games and Sundries to talk about wargaming in a big way. So let's bring Chris in. Hello, Chris. How are you, sir?
Good evening, everyone.
Hey.
So you are with the team. I have Risky Jim, who is to your, well, from our point of view, to your right.
Don't do that because it never works that way.
And then there's Chris in the upper
Hey,
corner.
how you doing?
Hey, Chris. You remember that name?
Yep.
So what we normally do at the beginning of the show is we do a little catch up on what kind of hobbying they have done since the last show. And since you have joined us at the tail end, we'll give you a, you can give us a quick synopsis because I imagine you do a lot of hobbying. So why don't you kind of fill us in on what kind of things you do?
Well, actually, I wish I got to do as much as I would like to do. Usually we're running the business and everything. I'm so tied up, or I'm getting stuff ready for stuff that we produce. That usually ends up curtailing a lot of my hobby time, but currently working on some getting some figures ready that we'll be releasing at Historicon, basically doing some painting of units, so we have them for display purposes so people can see the figures in the flesh and not just up on the clamshells on the wall. So basically prepping those things. So pretty much my hobbying, especially over the last few years, has always been related to something for work. And in the business, whether it's creating a Moonstone demo table or painting Moonstone figures for sale of their product or whatever it happens to be, it's usually related to the business.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to be able to do personal projects, and hopefully
maybe someday, Chris.
And hopefully that time will come around again. But because I have a lot on my plate that I would love to be doing, and as we have a proverbial our lifetime clock of gaming cycle, as I get closer and closer to 6-0, I figure like, okay, I have a certain amount of time for X. It is not necessarily, it can be a morbid way of thinking, but it's like, it's realistic. It's like, what is really important, what's not important. So as you get closer to being a grayer and grayer hair in the hobby, you have to kind of pick and choose exactly what you want to do, not necessarily all the dreams and things that you had when you were in your 30s.
Sure. Yeah, I get that.
So, but that's pretty much pretty much it on the hobby side for me. But like I said, most of it's right now prepping for Historicon, and the releases there. So hoping by time that ends, by time between Historicon and NashCon, I'll have some time to actually do some personal projects.
Awesome. So. All right. So Jim, I got a curveball to throw at you. You probably have heard arguments, but so, you know, today's June 6th, D-Day, big event back in the day. You know, everybody got together and went and smacked around German troops and such. How do you feel? And it's probably in a history book you've read or some study you've done. How do you feel Patton truly felt about missing out on the biggest assault in history?
Well, I can tell you how he felt about it. He didn't. I mean, it's in his biographies. It's in his writings. He didn't feel very good about it at all. I mean, it's open to interpretation whether or not he would have, you know, done well in the opening phases of the Normandy campaign. I don't think he would have. I think the Allies knew. One thing about Eisenhower, he may not have been like the world's biggest tactician or like grand strategist, but he was an excellent judge of character. He knew his people. And he knew what they were good at and what they weren't good at. And he was very good at picking the right person for the right job. And also, what a lot of people might not remember is that all of Normandy was under British command. Everything, including Bradley's First Army, was under 21st Army Group of Bernard Montgomery. So if Patton had been in command at D-Day, he would have been under Montgomery's command, not only British command, which he had been before. He got along well with Alexander in North Africa and even in Sicily, but did not get along well with Montgomery, famously. So he would have been under Montgomery. That probably wouldn't have gone well. So I can tell you how he felt about it. He was not a fan of the situation.
Wasn't it that he rather, because originally they talked about invading from the south, right? South of France, I believe it was, and pushing up that way. And then they chose the northern route.
Well, Normandy was always the target. I mean, it was never not the target. You have to go in through northern France. It's the shortest line. All right, you're sitting in London is where the big Allied buildup is, and you're drawing a line to Berlin. What's the shortest distances? You know, it's always going to be northern France. And then northern France basically has two choices: Pas-de-Calais or Normandy. Okay, well, Pas-de-Calais was too heavily defended, too obvious, so we're going to go for the less obvious target. Now, of course, southern France does get invaded in what they call the Champagne campaign in August of 44, Operation Dragoon, Operation Anvil, stuff like that. That comes along a little later, but that's definitely a supporting attack.
Gotcha.
Is the southern offensive that eventually develops into Devers' 6th Army Group, 7th Army. Can't remember who commanded that, and the French First Army, Free French First Army.
Yeah, I was always curious. I mean, I think they touch upon it in the Patton movie, don't they, about D-Day and all that? And
well, Patton was famously put in charge of what they called FUSAG, First U.S. Army Group. Complete nonsense. It didn't exist, but that was the idea. And they knew that the Germans were always watching where Patton was doing, what he was assigned to, what he was up to. So they put him conspicuously in like this big headquarters, you know, right somewhere in Kent or Suffolk, you know, or right there in that southern corner of southeastern corner of the UK, and built all these fake units around him. And you know, he's coming into Pas-de-Calais. So I mean, maybe that's what they're talking about. Is they were supposedly going to have Patton in command. This was like the big ruse. This was I can't remember the name of the operation. Operation Downfall, though that's also part of the operation to possibly invade Japan. So I don't remember what the name of the operation is. Forget I said that. But yeah, there's going to be a big fake operation. It's part of the deception effort to get the Germans to think that we were going to invade in Pas-de-Calais, which is further to the east of Normandy. And Patton was kind of waved around in front of the Germans. Oh, watch out! Here comes the scary boogeyman, you know. But again, they knew what he was good for. They knew what he wasn't good at. He, for whatever reason, he scared the Germans. That's undeniable. And They put him in charge of, again, this completely fictitious huge force, which of course didn't exist. It was like 1,000 radio offices, and your job was to sit there and literally tap out fake messages to each other, like, a bunch of teenagers, chatting on, TikTok or something, and you would literally just bounce messages back and forth. And the Germans are hearing all this, going, "Holy crap! Here comes a huge force under Patton, right at Pas-de-Calais, right where they expected it, and they took the bait. They fell for it.
Operation Fortitude.
Thank you.
Nice.
I don't know where I got Downfall from. But yeah, that's the second I said that wasn't right, because Downfall is part of out in the Pacific. Totally different.
Gotcha.
Different mission.
Awesome. So, news. Let's talk some news. Do you have any news?
I don't think so.
Marty's not here.
I know.
MIA.
Big fail.
Big fail.
Marty is stuck in traffic.
I have a little news. I caught a blip. The new game, Baron's War. It's a new Andy Hobday game.
Uh-huh.
They froze it, meaning they've run out. It's been so popular, they've run out, so they stopped production or stopped selling. Is that not production? They stopped selling it so they could resupply. So
I guess that's a good problem to have.
yeah, it's a very good problem.
This is like the 1200s, 1300s in Great Britain or England. Baron's
Sure.
War?
Yes.
Yeah, that's not really new. That's been out for a little while. I mean, it's cool that they're having, well, not cool that they're having supply problems, but it's cool that they're being this successful. Unless they just launched a new release or a new edition, I'm not aware of.
The Andy's version, I think, is recent, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
I know. I think the rule book's been out for a while, but like the starter sets and all that.
The starter sets from War Games Atlantic are
Yeah.
newer.
Yeah.
Those are the new releases, and I know from what I was reading from War Games Atlantic, they're basically they're sending the molds back and forth across the pond, so they can produce in the UK and then produce in the United States. So so boards all let you produce in place and versus having to deal with any importation issues.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yep. So there's that, and then other than that, it's been relatively quiet. Chris, have you got any business news that came out? I mean, everybody's been kind of, right after all this tariff BS was announced, everybody put out statements, but recently it's been quiet. I did get an update from Mantic for their one Kickstarter that I backed, that of course shipments will be delayed by a couple months, which is typical for Kickstarter. So I'm not really, too concerned over that, but I really haven't heard anybody saying, "Oh, we've frozen everything and we're not shipping anything."
Yeah. I've got 2 Kickstarters that I'm waiting on delivery from. One is from Beetle and Grimm. I can't remember the name of the Kickstarter, but it's a book full of total party kills. I forgot the name of it, but it's for D&D. And then the other one is not hobby related.
What about you, Chris Bennett?
Well, as far as our operations, we have not been affected by them as far as what we do. All our supplies, our raw materials that we produce from have not been impacted. So that's worked on our end. In fact, I had heard out in the ether that people were complaining about the price of MDF, and I'm like, it's stable. So either people are trying to take advantage of producers and saying that it's being affected, but our supplier here in Nashville, basically prices within normal commodity fluctuation, and we've actually seen it drop over the last. Well, it's dropped over the last year and a half, and it's continued to, and it's basically stabilized right now at a fixed point. So if that hasn't been affected, our resin from Amerolabs hasn't been affected price wise, and then we've had some from stuff that from third parties that we've imported, from that we've had a 10% for the UK 10% tariff. But that was fairly understood, but it's not as far as us as a producer, we're not seeing an effect. If
That's
we're dealing
good.
with third party, we'll see, things here and there. And it tends to be what you end up bringing over as far as the amount before you get jumped. It has to hit a certain amount before customs seems to be worrying about it. So if you can actually, if you, as a small company and what we deal with small orders from third parties, we can kind of stay under that radar customs wise. At least that's what we have found. They're not under a certain dollar amount. They're not messing with it, not holding things up. If it pops over, then they'll hit you with some duties. But outside of that, not really seeing an effect.
That's good.
Yep.
So, Chris, I guess you should introduce your company and what it is and what it will be, and then you have a big event you want to talk about tonight, so that we can lead into that. So, and then after that, we'll talk about Jim's Bunker Hill projects and all that fun stuff. So, take it away, Chris.
Well, thank you for having me. Phalanx Games and Sundries, as we've been around for a while now, since end of 2012. We started out as Phalanx Consortium, which is still the parent company name. We just do business as Phalanx Games and Sundries now. We existed primarily in the convention space as far as going to shows. We worked with small independents over that period of time. We developed our production side and prototyping side, and where we do design work for other companies. We do design work for our own IP. And then we go out to the shows. Primarily, we have our online presence through our website and on Etsy. Etsy's pretty much just our MDF side is on Etsy. Everything else is on our website. And so that's kind of how we have, grown over the course of, almost coming into 13 years.
Mm-hmm.
So we always have had a place for the small independents. So that's what we tend to be a little bit more specialized in that sense, that if you see us at a show, you're going to typically see things that are unique to our booth, that not a lot of other people are carrying. We're not just another retailer that has the same stuff that's in distribution with every other retailer that's out there. So we tend to market that way, and work with smaller companies in order to carry their product. And usually there's a symbiotic relationship. Usually there's something we're doing behind the scenes with them, whether it's production, whether it's design work. That's usually how the relationship has developed with us. And then it ends up eventually going into the retail side. And in fact, now with everything that's going on, I mean, as far as actual business, we're actually seeing an influx now of companies that are actually investigating production in place. So we have talked to a couple of UK companies that want to talk to us about producing here in the States, having everything kitted here in the States, and then that way they don't have to worry about anything coming across the pond.
Nice.
So that's what we're working with a couple of companies in that, and talking to them, setting up production for them, and a couple of those things will become publicly released at Historicon. Right now, we're not doing that until then. So we're excited about that. It's kind of a thing that I've been hoping to get to. Technology always took a while to catch up with what I was actually envisioning for it. Mm-hmm. That we like to do, and so forth. We want to be this in between where we're producing in a way that fits a small developer, because it's not always the perfect fit for going to plastic injection molding. That's usually something you have to reach a certain economy of scale before that becomes a viable option for you as a company. But right now, so we're looking for those companies that are figuring, okay, we're gonna have reasonable sales, but we know we're not going to be the next 40K or something like that, but we're going to need some production of some sort. And now with how additive manufacturing has become more and more advanced with as far as that technology, as well as the technology in resin. It now is a very viable option, where before people may have had or may still get a piece that's being done by somebody who is producing out of their garage, so to speak, and they're using consumer printers and they're using inexpensive resins, and they get figures and they figure, well, this is what additive manufacturing is about. They're not durable. But the reality is TGM7 from Emera Labs, which is what we use exclusively now, I'll put it up against metal figures. I'll put it up against plastic injection molding any day of the week as far as durability. In fact, I would, in some cases, I would prefer it against metal from a durability standpoint, because it's not going to bend and then, delaminate the paint that you've put on the figure and things of that nature. It's not going to become brittle over time. We looked at other options with other, with thermoplastic manufacturing and things of that nature. We pulled back from those and stayed with and went with the Asiga machines. Those same machines are being used by Phalanx Games. Reaper Miniatures uses them on a production scale. So it was a technology that, when we saw, especially a Reaper who has been in the production business for years now, saw them using it, and not only using it, but expanding their farm into a fairly extensively, we were sold that was a better approach than having to fight with making molds, which gives our client, which is nice from the standpoint of mold making, because we don't have any mold making. We set up a project that we can turn around a person's project very quickly. They can get set up for print and be in production. If I have a model, I can actually have them in a production status within 24 hours.
Nice.
So it's not, you're not having all those expenses that you do have with other forms of manufacturing. And for the small independent game developers, that's a win, because
Huge. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's slightly more from a standpoint of individual model from a cost standpoint, but the biggest thing that kills you is the setup. I mean, no matter what, if you were looking at, setting up an injection mold, you're looking at thousands of dollars to set up just to get the mold. You have a limitation on what the size of that mold can be. So it really does have to be in a position of that you have that scale in order to afford that.
Right.
And you're going to need 2,500 units to start out with. But this allows people to have just-in-time inventories for our small companies. They're not having to worry about it from the standpoint of something being a certain lag time, or getting, I'm out of stock, or hey, I'm running out of stock. Can you produce something? We can get them back in production fairly quickly. So that's always a win in that regard, and not have to have a large amount of stock on hand from a standpoint of their upfront costs.
Yeah.
So, and then with this technology, because it is digital in its nature, we work with other third production companies in the EU and the UK to produce the things there. So we're producing primarily for North America. You have another partner, they produce in the EU, another one produces in the UK. And so you're getting production in the zones that you're selling, and you're not having to worry about those. You have to set up kitting in those different zones, but you're not having to worry about the logistics of going across, the ocean, getting in a container, all those expenses that became very evident during the course of the pandemic.
Right. So, Chris, what are some of the lines that you carry on your retail side?
Well, on the retail side, we will, of course, have Moonstone. That's one of our that we enjoy working with them. We had a long relationship with Phalanx Games, so of course Phalanx is represented. We worked for them from their very early days on. We've done some in the intervening period. We did some light production for them until they went ahead and, went off and got the equipment themselves and started doing it themselves. Then we also have worked with Knuckle Duster Miniatures over the years, primarily producing on the MDF side for their building line. And then now, of course, that the difference with the Knuckle Duster buildings that is kind of a different than a lot of other MDF buildings is the things like doors, windows, those type of accessories are actually, they were done in metal. They've now been converted over and they're now done in resin printing, and they are inserts that go into the model. So you get a little bit more three-dimensional relief. You get a little bit more detail when you actually have a fully paned, sashed offset window in the model and not just something that's laser cut from the MDF. So it gives you that degree of detail that's unique to fairly unique to the Knuckle Duster line. I don't know of too many other companies that do it that way. You'll see them, build layers with different types of materials for MDF, but you don't see them, but you don't see a lot with, metal / now resin parts.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool.
So,
all right. Yeah. Let's transition to one of the main reasons you're joining us tonight. You for whatever reason got a hair and this idea to have your own con.
That's correct. Reaper can't be the only game having their own con.
Right? That's fair. That's fair.
So
why, how, when, where, the who, what's, whens, and whys.
Well, we're set for November 7th through 9th of November. And that'll be in Hopkinsville, Kentucky at the Bruce Convention Center. Be called Phalanx Con. Surprise. And we wanted to develop that as not only a miniatures event, but also a tabletop gaming event that encompassed everything. And by everything, I mean, you have collectible card games, board games, RPGs, all of those things going on at the event, not just, being specifically themed. So as we kind of refer to it as a gathering of the clans, a celebration of the hobby in general. So that's kind of what we're working on for that. And of course, we know it's the first year and it's going to take a little bit of time to get the word out and get people involved. But we're excited about it. I actually had been contemplating doing it for a number of years now. This didn't just come out of the woodwork, 5 months ago. It's something that I had been thinking about when we were based in Virginia, about putting something together that was a regional convention, because if you really looked at the calendar in Virginia, a regional convention that really celebrated the tabletop hobby itself was really kind of absent within the Virginia region. It wasn't there. Then when we moved here into Tennessee, and the idea didn't go away. It was just like, okay, well, but I had to get used to, okay, what's going on in the region. This is a different region for us. We're not, familiar with all the conventions that go on. But now after being here for a couple of years, you're kind of like saying, okay, yeah, there's in the late fall, there's this gap that has a need, that at least I felt it had a need from what I was seeing going on. And so we're hoping to be able to grow it into something that's, robust over the course of the next few years, and we'll see how it goes. But that's, like I said, everything is live now on tabletopevents.com. So you can go there. It's live. We're accepting events. You can get badges, but of course, if you're running games, if you're GMing a game, we do have a discount where you run an event, you get a certain amount off the badge. If you run 2, you get more off the badge. If you run 3 or run a tournament, then the badge is complimentary. So it's to reward, people to actually run things. So that helps attract people. We of course are excited. We have Warlord Games is coming, actual, as a vendor.
That's
so we're
awesome.
excited about that. They'll be running a bolt action tournament at the convention. Parabellum is actually coming. Corporate Representative Hunter will be here at the convention, and they'll be running a qualifier tournament at Phalanx Con. So that's kind of what my focus is from a vendor standpoint. Is we want to attract over time. We want to attract the actual manufacturers and publishers to be there. I want it to be a little different than what you would necessarily be used to in a local regional, where you have a lot of the stores that are, in that area or whatever. We want to have actual manufacturers and publishers there. We've reached out to Troll Lord Games, of course, which is, Gary Gygax and his group. That was the last project that he was involved with before he passed. With Castles and Crusades RPG. So we reached out to them. They would like to support it as well. So we're excited about it. I think it'll come together. I know people. I'll talk to people and they'll say, "Well, that's not till November." Like, yeah, but in my world, I blink my eyes and I'm in.
I was going to say, yeah, that's quick by calendar standpoint from a planning perspective. Yeah.
From a planning perspective and from just how things move around here, we'll be to November before I know it. So, so that part of the things we're excited about. And like I said, it's something that I've been thinking about for some time, and so we'll give it a go.
That's awesome. I'm really excited that we're going to have something so close, and the venue that you have is gorgeous, and it's going to be such great space to grow into. I think people are going to be really impressed.
Yeah,
I really do.
The Bruce, for being in a small town like the Bruce is in Hopkinsville, it is a incredible facility. Architecturally, it kind of looks like a World War, on the outside facade it looks like a World War II hangar because of our proximity to Fort Campbell and the 101st Airborne. That's kind of the motif that they went off of. The 101st, the base holds a lot of events at the Bruce on a regular basis, whether they're military balls or whatever that happens to be. They held them there. And so it's just a really nice, it's about 36,000 square feet. So we have a place to grow into over time. We're, starting with what we felt would be good for a first year. And then, as I told them, I said, I look forward to the day I can just come to you and say, we'll need the whole space next year.
Right. So do they, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So you're looking for people to run tournaments and games, and you're open to RPGs, miniature games,
yes,
board games. So how can people reach you to find out more about it?
Well, our Facebook page, Phalanx Consortium, is there. We cross-pollinate our announcements for the convention on that site, and that's our public side. We do have a private group for the convention on Facebook. You can go to Phalanx Con 2025 on Facebook, and you can request to join. I really wanted that page itself to be more focused about people who are really wanting to be involved, wanting to be, really want to keep up on the news of the convention, things of that nature. But like I said, we do cross-pollinate all our announcements onto both Facebook pages. You can always reach out via our website at Phalanx Games and Sundries.com. On the contact, you can reach out that way, and that's assured you'll get through to our email. Sometimes our spam filter may filter out some emails that come in, but that one, everything from our contact link on the website will come into us. So yeah, like I said, we're looking for events. We love to have one-off events, not just tournaments. I know I've mentioned several tournaments. We want there to be scenario-based, events, whether it's, fantasy, sci-fi, historical, whatever it happens to be. not only just to have something for people who aren't necessarily in the tournament scene, because we know that's not everybody's thing. And so, like I said, we want everybody to feel welcome at the convention and feel like they have a place at the convention. So there's nothing that we're not willing to look at as far as an event, and we're excited about that.
Yeah,
that's nice. And what a nice way. I mean, seriously, if there is a game somebody is passionate about out there that they would like to have more of a community available to play, what a perfect place to try to, reach out to Chris, say, hey, I'd like to try to run a thing. And, you'll be surprised who's going to come out of the woodwork. And then even if people don't right away, people will be checking it out when they're at the convention and be like, hey, that looks cool. What is that? And then that's how you make your little circle grow.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And the nice thing is the area is pretty easy to get to.
Yeah,
I mean,
very much.
Whether you're coming from north, whether it's Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, through Kentucky, it's a pretty easy location to get to. It's right off of Interstate 24. So
it is as far as its access to multiple large demographics, it is an easy location to get to. You can come from St. Louis, you can come down from Indianapolis, Louisville, Lexington are easy drives. Of course, Nashville going up 24 up from Nashville. So there's large population centers that are reasonably close to Hopkinsville to get up to the convention. And so, like I said, as a regional convention, I look at a regional convention as kind of being about 200 to 250 mile radius of draw. So there's a lot of population centers within that circle. So it's so we're excited about that, and also, of course, as far as reaching out to us, so you can always reach out to us on the Tabletop Events page as well. That's another way of getting a hold of us.
Awesome.
Good
Any
stuff.
other questions?
No, not that I can think of. Like I said, just if you get involved, guys, now's the time. I said I've told Chris this, that I'm really enjoying following the journey of like how you go from just the crazy notion of, hey, I think I want to launch a convention to what that looks like. The emojis that Chris sends me regularly about what that looks like, somebody falling down, exhausted, whatever. That's probably accurate, but I think it's very fascinating. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, this is the first convention where we've seen it from the very first thought that, when Chris told us about it, versus when, we were kind of involved in helping Adepticon, some things, which was already very well established. Yeah. And then UK Games Expo, we were out there for one of the first few years they were out at the convention center out there. So it's interesting to see the birth of a new convention. Yep. And honestly, sometimes I'll be honest with you, Chris, at one point I scratched my head and go, are you insane? Aren't there enough conventions in the world? I mean, where are people going to find the time? So,
well, it's, like I said, we know in that same general time frame, you have back east, you have Fall In, but we don't really feel that we're in conflict with that as a convention, because it's pretty much a regional show that time of year as well. So it's not, Historicon's the big thing for HMGS. That's the one they're going to draw the most people to. Right. So we don't feel we're in conflict with that, and we just feel that it's also, I think it's a little different because you don't see a lot of conventions that are outside of something like a Gen Con, and even Gen Con has its emphases as far as that's concerned. You don't see that many conventions that are celebratory of the entire hobby. They typically have their focus and so forth. And that's why we were looking for people to be involved in board games, and that's your focus. I mean, I know that's not necessarily, I enjoy some board games, but it's not my thing that I do all the time. I mean, I'm a tabletop gaming guy, so that's the deal. I have no, collectible card games. Yeah, I'm aware of them, and I know that they're very popular, but it's not necessarily my thing. And that's why we brought in another guy who, another store here will be running that side of things. So it's that's where their strength is, and I firmly believe that that's what you do, and you surround and you have people that are working at the convention that are in those different areas. So, okay, what's the need of the RPG community? What's the need of the collectible card game community? And that you can represent that and reflect that at any given show. Another thing that we're doing, which, for our first year, it's definitely an experiment, but we have 2 Twitch miniature painting artists who are coming to run seminars at our convention. They'll be running hobby seminars at the convention over the course of all 3 days. And so that's not something you see very often outside of the big shows, that you have somebody that would come in and actually say, have a class on, one of the classes is on non-metallic versus metallic paints, and how to best use them and what purposes to use them for. And then we have specifically an introduction seminar on just being introduced to the hobby, because we want the show to also be someplace where people that aren't necessarily all that familiar with it can come and be introduced to the hobby as well.
I think that's awesome.
Yeah. All right. So guys, make sure you check out the websites. If you have any questions, you can always send them to us as well, and we'll reach out to Chris. Chris, full disclosure, he's
Chris
kind of our neighbor.
Yes,
He's just down the road from us.
Yeah.
And that was actually an interesting surprise. Because I knew you all had moved, and Tennessee, and for some reason I thought you had mentioned that you were in the Bristol area, and that was the time we were getting ready to move. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, they're in Tennessee now. That's kind of from Chicago area. And and it was funny. I was sitting there.
Walmart parking lot, man.
I was actually in the Walmart, and I sat there and I looked, and Dawn had just passed by me, and I'm like, is that Dawn? And then I messaged Bill. I said, where do y'all live in Tennessee? And he said, oh, we're in Clarksville and all this stuff. And I said, well, yeah, so are we. So,
small world.
And so it's been that was a fun to
yeah. So we're looking forward to following the journey along, and we'll be covering it. We'll be there. Broadcasting live, and
we'll have Chris back periodically, so he can give us an update on what's happening and all
that good stuff.
So, like I said, if anybody's interested, submit an event request, and we'll get it taken care of. We look forward to having as many people involved as possible. So.
And if anybody out there wants to run the Old World Warhammer, I believe they just produced a match play guide or something like that. I've seen blurbs, but I haven't actually read it yet. So sounds like a perfect platform. I'm just saying. Or some Middle Earth.
Ooh, Middle Earth.
Yeah. Or they could do that other funky fantasy Age of Sigmar stuff. So there's always that. So I'm seriously though, if anybody has if there's a game you're very passionate about it and you want to get people to it doesn't even have to be a tournament, right, Chris? It could just be, hey, we're going to do this scenario, we're going to do, and you do 2 or 3 games, spend a day gaming your favorite game.
Yep.
Right. Like I said, anything. People want to run narrative Star Wars Legion games or things of that nature that they're not tournament based. We're very open to that, and we love seeing what people do for tables. I know tournaments tend to be, because they need to be able to be set up and be easy to set up and things of that nature. Tournament terrain, though it can be beautiful, and I understand that, tends to be a little bit fairly plain in a lot of sense. But if you look at something, if you go to a convention where a one-off game is going on and you have somebody has an absolutely gorgeous table that's a centerpiece that they've been working years to put together, those type of events, I love them.
Same. It's my favorite thing to watch, honestly.
And that's what I've always loved about the miniature side, is the art of it. It's not just the games themselves, but it's what they look like and how they're presented on the tabletop. And we've come a long way since a bunch of cutout felt. So I'm, really excited to see. We're excited to see beautiful tables and things of that nature as well.
Yeah. So guys are out there. If you're a producer, if you have a line, reach out to Chris, see if there's some interest there. There's nothing better than a good big old sales floor of stuff.
Yeah, in fact, we're also here in Clarksville. Amazingly enough, the team from Golden Dragon Games is here locally in Clarksville. They're developing their game Marcher, which is a science fiction alternative history World War II type setting. And they've been putting that together now for years. They just received their first production samples because they actually did a Kickstarter for some plastics for their U.S. models, their infantry models, and they've actually got their first production, some of the first production samples from War Games Atlantic for that project, and they're actually going to be with us at Historicon, and they will be at Phalanx Con as well. They'll be running a tournament of Marcher there, as well as having their own booth as well. So we're
awesome.
And once again, it's that we're excited about because they're a small independent and getting started, and that's right in our wheelhouse. Is what we enjoy working with.
There you
Love
go.
that. Love
Awesome. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and shift gears. Shift some gears. Jim, Bunker Hill.
Yeah, Bunker Hill. So the tragically misnamed Battle of Bunker Hill. Of course, as we all know, most of the fighting actually took place on nearby Breeds Hill. But on some of the period maps of the day, mostly by the British, they got the names of the two hills mixed up. And as a result, the battle was misnamed and the name stuck. And it's been with us ever since. All right, so some context. Viewers of our channel are aware that we recently did the beginning of the American Revolution, like the infamous shot heard around the world. We recreated Battle of Concord Bridge battle. The whole thing was basically 2 volleys. The shootout on Concord Bridge in 20 millimeter miniature. So that was a lot of fun. But 2 months later, it's now June 1775. So we're coming up on the exact 250th anniversary. No disrespect to D-Day, of course, today being June 6th, but it's like the 81st anniversary. We had a big D-Day event last year. Pete Panzeri did his big 20-foot table for D-Day. So we live streamed that. And then for June, every June rolls around every year, and I'm like, everybody and their brother is going to be doing D-Day. There's lots of stuff going on in June that we can do for anniversaries that aren't necessarily D-Day. So last year we also did Saipan. It was also the 80th anniversary for Saipan last year. The other D-Day. Does anyone else hear that? No. Okay.
I took care of it.
Cool. So Bunker Hill is, again, part of the American Revolution, or American War of Independence, if you prefer. It's the first real battle of the American Revolution, many people consider. I mean, it takes place right up by Boston. So, of course, we have Lexington, Concord, Boston Road, all that stuff, all on April 19th. But that's kind of a skirmish. As far as a set-piece battle, the first one is usually considered Bunker Hill. We're switching to hex encounters because miniatures are great. They're pretty. God knows the tables look nice. But very quickly, you run into all kinds of problems. Realism, scale, fire to movement coefficients, the geometry of the battlefield, basically, how far units can move under how much fire. That's important in Bunker Hill. So if you're not familiar with Bunker Hill, here's the short version. Boston was shaped very, very different in 1775 than it is today. It looks nothing like it does back then. And there's this big peninsula overhanging Boston, which is the big British headquarters in North America at that time, or at least in what's going to become the United States. And the Americans want to threaten it. So the Americans, again, the war hasn't really started yet, but it's kind of started. Americans want to put some artillery on Breeds Hill, and it just barely puts them in range of what was then northern Boston. Of course, Boston has grown exponentially in the century since. It's Bunker Hill is now well within downtown Boston. But back then it was this little spit of land, some fences and some farms. There was a small Charlestown village nearby, but nothing very much. And they were going to start shelling British ships in the harbor. So the British said, I don't think so. They put together a force of about 2,200 men, mostly grenadiers, light infantry, and a battalion of Marines under Major Pitcairn, and they formed up to take those high ground. Because these are just militia. They're not going to, they're farmers with, grandpappy shotgun. We're, the most elite fighting force on the planet. We just won the 7 Years' War. Watch this. Yeah, watch this. The American patriots said, hold my beer. And they opened fire. And the British do technically win the battle. Almost 50% casualties out of their 2,200 man landing force. They take about 1,000 killed and wounded, especially their officers. It's an absolute bloodbath. And this was a time when 3,000 men was a big army. This is not Napoleonics. Leipzig was like 400,000 people. Waterloo, 250,000 if you include the Prussians. Borodino, Austerlitz. Some of these battles are absolutely huge. American Revolution, 3,000 people. That's like what Britain can put in North America at this time. Of course, next year we're going to see about 25,000 troops, and that was the biggest expeditionary force Britain had sent anywhere at that time. So losing 1,100 men, 1,000 men in an afternoon is, no bueno. The British cannot do it. It was I can't remember. I think it was Howe himself who said it, the British commander. It was a stupendous victory. Another such would have ruined us. It's the definition of a Pyrrhic victory. So we've got it set up. 100 meters per hex, 100 men per counter. So not quite a company, really like two companies together. Remember, companies back then were only like 30 or 40 men, sometimes 50 men, bayonet strength. And yeah, we got it set up. We got the British ships set up in their correct positions. Of course, they can move and because where the British ships begin the battle, they can't see a friggin' thing. The entire, if you've ever seen the HBO miniseries John Adams.
Yep.
There's that famous scene where Abigail Adams runs out of her house in the middle of the night. The kids are all with her, and they go out, and you see the British fleet just absolutely shilling the crap out of this this distant piece of land. It's a very dramatic scene. It's not accurate, of course. Only one ship was firing, HMS Lively. But that whole overnight bombardment killed exactly, wait for it, one guy. Killed exactly one person.
No.
Granted, it took his head clean off, but they killed exactly one person. So the bombardment was nothing. Now, later in the battle, the British ships do move around to a different spot where they get a better angle on the Americans. Range is also very limited. This is, again, why you kind of have to do these battles in hex encounters because, or some kind of scaled system because, it gets very tough to do in like true line of sight miniature. Otherwise, you'd need thousands of miniatures and a tennis court for a table, that kind of thing. But yeah, we're gonna see how it goes. I've got a pre-play test actually in progress right now. So far, yeah, it's already pretty bloody. The Americans have lost about 100 people, like already. And we'll see if the Americans can hold on. So if the Americans can hold on to that high ground for a certain amount of time, or inflict a certain amount of casualties, they're going to get driven off the field. It's just a given. Welcome to the American Revolution. That's one of the reasons the American Revolution, I feel, isn't terribly popular among war gamers, at least here in the States, because if you do it realistically, you lose all the battles. At least the vast majority of them. It's still kind of amazing we ever won that friggin' war. But when you actually like break everything down and you measure like all the differences and holy heck, how did we get away with that? But anyway. Yeah, it's underway. We're going to try a full play test either Saturday or Sunday. Might have some players online on our Discord channel, or I might just be doing it solitaire because, again, it's kind of a play test. I haven't really run this system, I think, Bill, since you and I did King's Mountain.
Yeah.
A while ago. It's the same basic system, just very different armies.
Okay.
King's Mountain is basically two militias having at each other. This is a little bit more than a militia against like trained British. Mostly light infantry, grenadiers. They did have some battalion companies in from various regiments. I won't go through them all. And again, a little bit of Marines, and complete with naval gunfire support. So this wasn't Concord. This wasn't Lexington. This was actually a battle. And again, in June, we actually had this once on our podcast. We talked about the seasonality of historical wargaming. A lot of stuff happens in June.
Yeah.
Waterloo, Barbarossa, D-Day, Saipan. The Ramada, Ramadi, I should say, in Iraq. It never June. What is it about June? Everybody hates each other in June. There's never a shortage of things to do. So, I mean, of course, we're going to wave the D-Day, especially since it's kind of an odd-numbered one as we go by it. We hit D-Day very hard last year.
Yeah.
We hit D-Day very
We've done
hard
it several times. Yeah.
for the 75th and the 70th. I mean, we've done it, in all kinds of different systems. But now being a 250th anniversary, our channel viewers, I appreciate your patience. I know American Revolution stuff isn't always the most popular stuff on our channel. Thanks very much for all your support on our Concord videos. Those did really well.
Yes, they did. Very
especially for American Revolution. American Revolution kind of usually, but I'm not going to pass up 250th of Bunker Hill. Good news, there's not another battle for Long Island's not until what, August of 76. So you've got like a 13-month reprieve from the guy's name is Oriskany Jim, for crying out loud. I mean, Oriskany's a famous American Revolution battle. So
truth.
When there's a excuse to do American Revolution, Oriskany Jim's going to be there. So we hope to have a video on that out right around the anniversary, maybe a little bit later, back end of June somewhere.
There you go. And there's always other, Shiloh, Gettysburg, to fill in those, late June, July, those kind of months. Yeah.
Oh, Civil War. Yeah. I mean, June, you can get into the wilderness. You can get into Cold Harbor. No, Cold Harbor's in May. But yeah, there's lots of stuff going on.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
Chris, we can't hear you. All we hear is noise. Sorry. All right. So, Jim, I need your official opinion on something. So,
I making me feel very important today.
I know, right? I have this secret passion for a game, but nobody plays it with me. Panzer. No, that's not that. I play that game. But
that's not so
right. It's right there. No, it's
that's not
that
so
squad leader, advanced squad leader game.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I've been seeing a lot of it on Facebook Marketplace recently. I don't know why. It's kind of weird, but some dude posted. Get a load of this. Some dude posted. I have an extensive. I think it was ASL. May have been squad leader collection. And it was just the hex, the counters in like tackle boxes, and he wanted $2,000 for it.
What?
And I'm like, dude. I mean, I know some of the older stuff in excellent condition can go for some pretty good money.
It's not even the full modules.
As far as I know, he had everything divided up. I mean, everything was divided and labeled beautifully in these, dividers, these plastic containers, and then he did have like this, like campaign expansions and stuff. If I'm gonna buy squad leader and ASL and all the modules that came out with it, I want the complete thing. If I'm gonna pay you a couple grand or more, I want the full box.
If he's got all the modules for advanced squad leader, there were 30 of those. I mean, you're getting a stack of games this high,
right?
You're getting a lot. And we just got all the counters for them and all the maps, and they're all in good condition.
I mean, I know it's worth
30
something.
games, so I mean, you're basically getting $100. Yeah. I mean, it sounds kind of steep.
Yeah, I mean, but it's one of the things I look at.
If it's coming with all the plastic and all like the little tackle, like you said, it has it all broken out.
Yeah.
I mean, you're getting all that too. I mean, I don't know. You guys know me. I can't. Look at all this gray in this beard. I mean, like Chris was saying earlier, we only have so much time left on this planet. I go with Valor and Victory. It's
I knew you were going to say that. I knew you were going to say that.
It's advanced squad leader.
You did ask for his opinion.
It's advanced squad leader for dummies is what advanced squad leader players say, and what Valor and Victory's players say. This is advanced squad leader for people who have a life. Take your pick. It's basically an advanced squad leader substitute. It's advanced squad leader light that allows you to kind of have the same kind of experience without the huge investment that because advanced squad leader is.
What is it that you like so much about that game, or is it just purely the nostalgia piece?
A lot of it's nostalgia, but it really gets into the weeds.
Avalon Hill used to rate. This is way back in the day, back in the 80s. Avalon Hill used to rate their games from 1 to 10. Tactics 2, War at Sea, stuff like that was 1. Midway was 3. Panzer Blitz was 6. Panzer Leader was 7. Arab Israeli Wars was 8. Rise and Decline of the Third Reich, Flat Top, those games were 10. Advanced Squad Leader was 10 plus.
Yeah.
I mean, when you play with all the bells and whistles in Advanced Squad Leader, it's...
Sheesh.
It's
You're on
not
the
just
third
moving some counters across the map and going, these are my guys, those are your guys, I'm going to shoot you.
You're on
There's
the third
supplies.
floor of a brick building. Wait, is it reinforced brick? No, it's stone.
Yeah.
Okay. You're on level 3. You're 4 hexes away, but between you is a level 2 tree. And is it closer to you than closer to the...
Let's just say a
there's
turn
smoke
can take a
screen?
very long time.
You're at it for a while. And yet, like, on Facebook and some of the other, online spaces, yeah, we're doing Jarzynski Tractor Factory and Advanced Squad Leader. I'm like, oh, okay. What are you doing in 2027? I mean, this is like history's one indoor tank battle. It is an absolute. The factory is 2 kilometers wide, and you're doing this at squad and fire team level in one of the most complex war games ever built. I mean, God bless you. God bless you.
Right.
Takes all kinds, right?
That's what you need at your convention, Chris. You need an old gray hair, old guys hex encounter corner where we can play some Panzer Blitz, Leader, Victory in the Pacific, any of those games.
He may have just volunteered. I'm not sure what happened there, but
Did I just volunteer myself?
I don't know.
Well, if I remember it's interesting because it used to be at Historicon, they used to have an Iron Man competition, and they basically would game for 24 hours, and they'd game multiple systems over 24 hours.
Sheesh.
And as everybody has gotten older, that has disappeared.
We can only game between 10 and 2. That's
right.
Yeah.
So that is going by the wayside now. But
well, that's sad. It just shows you that we need an influx of younger blood.
That is true. And that is always my argument is to meet everyone where they are and cross pollinate the hobby as best we can and never have a closed door from that standpoint. I've seen it too much that if somebody sees a historical game for the first time, they usually are intrigued by it, even if they come from a fantasy and sci-fi side of it. And it's like, well, I've never seen this before. And so having them opportunity for them to see it ends up paying dividends afterwards, because sometimes that is their entry level. They get into it. Of course, I look at, and I may upset some people, but basically I look at like Bolt Action. Bolt Action is an entry level game, or basically it's that initial sample of the hit of the drug, so to speak, that you get to get into World War II. I think, once you have that collection of models and things, and there's a lot of different rule sets you can explore. And that's the one thing that's actually really nice about tabletop miniatures games is typically once you have your collection, you can explore different rules. You can explore different ways to play. You don't have to be stuck in just one rule system. It gives you that option to explore things. And, as I refer to, I'm kind of a rules nut. I'll buy rules even if I don't play on playing the game per se, just because I want to see how the designer designed the game.
Right.
But I also tend to be very critical in the sense that I love designer notes. I love for the designer to actually say what is their thesis for the game.
Where were they coming from? What were they trying to accomplish? Why did they leave certain things out? Because you always leave some things out,
and you have to abstract certain things, and you end up in an ASL situation. And you, in doing this, you are able to, when you define your thesis and saying, I'm going to do this, and it's basically going to be tiddlywinks for World War II. Okay. Well, if that's what you do, then great. That's what you want. And I know as a consumer whether or not that game's for me or not. If you say I'm going to create a simulation and everything's going to be very detailed and so forth, well, if I want that type of game, I know that. But if you say you're doing something and then you don't accomplish it in the course of the rules, or you diverge from what you said in your thesis, then you didn't accomplish that. And that's what I would say is a bad set of rules, is when they diverge from their thesis. If they stick with it, then it's for me to make a decision whether or not that game's for me or not.
And a lot of that comes out in the play testing. There's not enough play testing nowadays. The publication and production cycle times have gotten so short, and that we're just gonna jam a game out and push it out. Meanwhile, the other big thing that I don't know, others may disagree. This idea about 90-minute games and this idea about 2-page rule books or 8-page rule books, like one side saddle stitch, 2 pieces of paper. That's the whole rule book. That's just a badly written rule book. You're going to have all kinds of questions. Get ready for your first fact page, because you're not going to cover every situation that can come up in any kind of game. Write me a paragraph about how, without illustrations, write me a paragraph about how to tie your shoes and do it in less than 3 pages. I'll wait. It takes to write, to really explain to somebody how a process works. I do process documentation, at work, professionally. So, the process documentation takes a while, and it's got to be cross-annotated. It's got to look, I don't like these Avalon Hill rules. They look like they're formatted like a legal document, section 14A, paragraph 1, subsection 2. I'm like, well, yeah. And then when you try to figure out how opportunity fire works versus your terrain table versus your movement rate, it's all cross-referenced. You can quickly bounce back between two different rule sections because it's annotated right there. Well, you can't have that if you don't have that annotation. And that's how we wrote Valor and Victory Modern Expansion. That's how we wrote Darkstar, and it's they've done well. So I think there's still a market out there for a nice beefy rule book that's properly written as a rule book, and a game that will actually get play tested to where all the things that might come up in your game, you either addressed, you've incorporated into your rules, or that's a problem. Okay, that wasn't in our thesis, to use Chris's verbiage. It was not what if you design a game to do A and then you start play testing it and a whole lot of B starts showing up, maybe it's time to go back and do a second draft of your rules. Before it's published, and now you have a V2 and a V3 and a V3.1 and FAQ release 4 and so on and so forth.
Right, and if a game ends up morphing from what you originally had planned, then all right, then just say that this is what the game is now, and that's I'll defend you all day long. I may not enjoy the way the game plays, but I'll defend. Well, no, he did what he said he did in his thesis. What he did in his design notes, he did. He accomplished that, or she did. They accomplished their goal. If they don't accomplish that goal, but what they define, then that's when you say, okay, this isn't living up to what it's supposed to be.
I've seen that.
I played Hostile Aircraft back in the day, which is ASL of air games in a lot of ways. But I can see the simplistic elegance within a Wings of Glory game. I can appreciate that, and I know what Wings of Glory is trying to accomplish.
Simplicity properly designed can really, like I said, I'm a big fan of Valor and Victory. Valor and Victory would probably make an ASL player, weep in his cornflakes. It's like, oh my God, this is for kids. Yeah, but it does a lot of the same things that ASL does. And like you're saying about like going back and updating your thesis or your objective. I won't mention the name, but I was working with a guy once who was trying to develop a platoon level game. The stacks were like this high of counters, and I was like, oh my God, you can't fit that many miniatures within so many, if you can play miniatures or hexes or whatever. And before you know it, it became a company level game. Okay, well now you have to go back and rewrite your rules and rewrite your designer's notes, rebrand your project. Yeah. This is a company level game now, or maybe even small battalions.
Awesome.
Makes sense.
Yep. So what I'm getting out of that is everybody love ASL. Play more hex and counter games. Play more hex and counter games.
Yes.
Yes.
We are doing hex and counter Bunker Hill this weekend. We're not
because you don't have to paint the counters. They're already printed and painted for you. Especially if Jim does them.
I built 2,200 British in about 3 hours yesterday. It was great.
Honestly, I think Jim has a side business he doesn't realize. He could make those counters and do it as a print on demand on War Store, and people would buy that crap up to replace their crappy old counters.
We mean Bill.
Well, there's me.
There's others too, but
there are lots of sites that do that, but they're usually free. Imaginative strategist for Penn's leader is just one example.
Yeah.
Lots of people do that.
Well, with that in mind, we're going to go ahead and close out the show. It's been a great show. We want to thank
Use
you.
your words.
Tripping over my tongue. We want to give big thanks to our special guest, Chris Bennett, and can't wait to see what November brings.
Yep.
It'll be very interesting. And of course to Chris and to Jim and to Donnie, the person sitting over here, and we'll go from there.
Yep.
And we'll see you guys on the next episode. Be on the lookout for some Revolutionary War action later this month, and there'll be some live painting on Sunday. We'll see if I can get my skin tones out. So one of two things is going to happen on Sunday. I'm going to paint Captain Winters, and if the skin tones don't come out right, you're going to see a flying airborne Captain Winters.
Watch the skies.
Start with that 28 millimeter gun crew, and then if it comes out bad, you can call it frostbite.
Okay,
that's true.
So, Chris Bennett, I have never painted a large bust before, and I have a very, very nice resin 1/16 scale of Captain Winters from Band of Brothers, and so I feel like there's this ungodly amount of pressure on me to do it right. So he's unfortunately been sitting on my paint table for about 4 months now in the same condition, because I'm just kind of like, I look at him and go, yeah, maybe tomorrow. Just because skin tones are my nightmare. They're my nemesis. So, and at a bigger scale, you can't hide it. So,
no, but you can have fun with it. And that's the one thing I think is, because people, as far as the different sizes of miniatures that I usually paint, I'm either, I have, of course, 28s. I love 40s as well, but I also do a lot of 10 millimeter. And people say, well, why don't you do 15s? I said, because 15s have the detail of, nowadays have 15s and 18s have the detail of a 28. And I'd rather have the 28 and then worry about doing it on a 15. And if I want to do it at 15, I might as well just go down to 10 and then I can paint faster.
There we go.
But with doing collector pieces, I do those as well, and I always have fun. It's kind of like my palette cleanser, something to do that kind of gets you away from the miniatures for a little bit. And I always enjoyed the blending and so forth that you get to do with larger stuff.
And if anything goes seriously wrong, Bill, he's never clean in the show.
That's true.
He's got a little bit of dirt smudge on his face. If something goes like really wrong, I was like, get a little bit of.
Got a little bit of schmutz on your face, as they used to say in the day. So, all right, guys. Thank you very much, everybody. We hope you enjoyed the show. Please like, subscribe, share, ding-da-dong, all that good, fun, YouTube-y stuff. And be on the lookout. And more importantly, our Discord channel has been exploding.
It's doing all right.
Let me tell you how much it's exploding, because in the middle of the night, while I'm trying to sleep, I hear ding, 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 ding.
What is that? Is it work? And he's like, no, it's Discord.
Mute the channel. Mute the channel.
Yeah, so
All right, everybody in our Discord. Everyone in our Discord. Bill doesn't know how to mute the channels. Just
no, please keep going. It's awesome.
All night, 2 a.m.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I'm putting out the call.
Well, I'll be honest with you. I got fed up enough with the other day. I was at work in a meeting and the phone went ding, 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 ding. I'm like, what the hell? Pick it up and is it Mandy Pie? Is that the person's name? Ranting and raving about some project they were working on. I had to sign out because I couldn't get it to mute. So I just signed out. I'll sign back in. But yeah, it's a good thing. That's a good problem to have, honestly.
Yep. Love
So check out our Discord channel too. All right, guys. I know I've said this like 3 or 4 times. Right? I'm half Italian. I can't help it.
It's a Chicago
thing. It's a Chicago Midwestern goodbye, as Marty would say. We'll see you guys in the next episode. Take care.
Bye.